Israeli ground forces push deeper into Gaza, advancing in tanks and other armored vehicles on the territory's main city, and freeing a soldier held captive by Hamas militants. Today is Tuesday, October 31st, 2023, and this is the Dunkley Report. Israeli ground forces push deeper into Gaza, advancing in tanks and other armored vehicles on the territory's main city, and freeing a soldier held captive by Hamas militants. The Israeli Prime Minister rejected calls for a ceasefire Monday, even as airstrikes landed near hospitals where thousands of Palestinians are sheltering beside the wounded. The military said a female soldier captured during Hamas's brutal October 7th incursion was rescued in Gaza, the first since the weeks-long war began. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed her home, saying the achievement by Israel's security forces illustrates his country's commitment to free all the hostages. Israel has expanded its military assault deeper into northern Gaza, as the UN and medical staff expressed fears over airstrikes hitting closer to hospitals. Meanwhile, relief workers say the largest convoy of humanitarian aid to arrive still falls short of needs. Israel's military says a female soldier captured during Hamas's October 7th attack was released during Israel's ground operation. The Palestinian death toll in the Israel-Hamas war has reached 8,306, according to the health ministry in Gaza. More than 1,400 people in Israel have been killed, most of them civilians, slain in the Hamas rampage that started the fighting. In addition, 240 hostages were taken from Israel into Gaza by the militant group. The United Auto Workers Union says it reached a tentative contract with General Motors, the last of the Detroit 3 automakers, to agree to a deal. Under the deal reached early Monday, workers at all three companies will return to the job pending votes on whether to ratify the contracts, which will take place over the next 2 weeks. The GM deal follows tentative agreements. Union negotiators reached with Ford on Wednesday and Jeep maker Stellantis on Saturday. The union's targeted strikes against the companies began on September 15th. The main provisions of the deals are largely the same at all three automakers, but there are small differences. Lawyers for a group of Colorado voters are focusing on the January 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol and former President Donald Trump's words and actions in a hearing that could determine whether the Constitution's insurrection clause bars Trump from running again for the White House. Testimony in the group's lawsuit on Monday began with details about the January 6th assault that was intended to stop Congress from certifying Democrat Joe Biden's election win, and included first-hand accounts from some who were there. A Trump attorney called the case anti-democratic. Later in the week, the Minnesota Supreme Court will consider the same issue for that state's ballot. U.S. health regulators are warning consumers not to use more than 24 varieties of over-the-counter eyedrops due to the risk of infections that could lead to blindness. The advisory from the Food and Drug Administration applies to lubricating drops sold by 6 companies, including CVS Health, Rite Aid, and Target. The agency says consumers should stop using the products immediately and avoid purchasing any found in pharmacies and other stores. The agency recommended recalling the products last week after FDA inspectors found unsanitary conditions at the factory that produced the drops. Maine's authorities are trying to piece together the events that led to the worst mass shooting in the state's history. A sheriff's office reported Monday that the shooter's family had expressed concerns about his deteriorating mental health 5 months before the rampage. The Sagadahoc County Sheriff's Office reached out to officials of Robert Card's Army Reserve Unit, which assured deputies that they would speak to Card and make sure he got medical attention. The gunman shot 18 people and wounded 13 others at a bowling alley and then a bar in Lewiston on October 25th. A man has pleaded not guilty to charges of murder, attempted murder, and a hate crime in an attack on a Palestinian-American woman and her son. 71-year-old Joseph Chuba appeared in court Monday on 8 counts from an indictment by an Illinois grand jury. He is charged in the fatal stabbing of 6-year-old Wadea Al-Fayoume and the wounding of 32-year-old Hanan Shaheen on October 14th. Authorities say the victims were targeted because of their Muslim faith. Shaheen told police that Chuba, her landlord in Plainfield in Will County, was upset over the Israel-Hamas war and attacked them after she had urged him to pray for peace. Russian President Vladimir Putin has sought to deflect blame from the Kremlin for a riot in the southern region of Dagestan that targeted a flight from Israel, charging without evidence that Ukrainian agents of Western spy agencies were behind the rampage. A mob stormed the airport Sunday after a flight from Israel landed there, and clashes with police left 20 people injured. Putin on Monday cast the violence as part of U.S. efforts to weaken Russia. Hundreds of angry men, some carrying banners with anti-Semitic slogans, rushed onto the tarmac of the airport in Makhachkala, the capital of the predominantly Muslim region, looking for Israeli passengers on the flight from Tel Aviv. Heavy rain from Tropical Storm Pilar has already caused 2 deaths in El Salvador as it meanders off the Pacific coast. Pilar is bringing the threat of flash flooding to El Salvador and other parts of Central America. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Monday that Pilar was located about 210 miles southwest of San Salvador, with winds of 50 miles per hour, and was moving northeast at 5 miles per hour. The storm was expected to maintain that general track for the next day or two, stall for a day or more just off the coast, and then abruptly turn around and head back out to sea without making landfall. Shootings across the U.S. over the weekend before Halloween have left at least 11 people dead and more than 70 injured. Authorities say the deaths between Friday and Sunday included 2 in Tampa, Florida, 3 in Texarkana, Texas, and 2 each in Dodge City, Kansas, San Antonio, Texas, and Mansfield, Ohio. Many involved altercations arising from Halloween celebrations, including a Florida mass shooting early Sunday as bars were closing and scores of people in costumes spilled out on the streets. The violence unfolded after 18 people were killed last week by a gunman in Lewiston, Maine. More than 1,000 people turned out Sunday for a vigil. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Tuesday, October 31st, 2023. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.